Hello. I'm Sally Parker, secretary to the fabulous Oliver Chantry, whose newspaper column is the absolute law of New York. Whether it's about a new play, politics, murder, or even the art of cooking. What a fabulous character. And what a wonderful... You know, it's been said that if you have Chantry for a friend, you don't need any enemies. You know who said that? Chantry. He just loves his bad reputation. But beneath that exterior of tempered titanium, he hides a heart of pure mush. If I were to tell you about his kindnesses, his generosities, he'd boil me in oil. Only the finest imported olive oil, natural. Good morning, Mr. Chantry.
Good morning, Parker.
It's 11 o'clock.
Well, I start writing my column right away. What world-shattering trivia is on the agenda today?
Well, there's an item in Harrington's column this morning that might interest you.
I doubt it, but read it to me anyway.
Despite all of his lofty assurances, Oliver Chantry's protege, Lois Cunningham, will not get the lead in the Theater League's revival of The Grenadier. Alfred and Linda Barry, the reigning couple of our modern stage, will do the play as scheduled. Mr. Chantry's young friend will have to make other plans. Really, you ought to do something about Harrington.
Yes. I may send him a textbook on the basic rules of English grammar. I've seen better writing on board fences.
Yeah, well, it's pretty humiliating for Lois. Poor kid, she really counted on that part.
Yesterday afternoon, I convinced George Richmond that it would be sensational to cast Lois Cunningham opposite Alfred Barry.
Oh, but Mr. Chantry, Richmond called last night, and he said to tell you...
I cannot permit you to enter.
Let go me arm! I just want to see Mr. Chantry.
Madame, I cannot permit you to enter.
What's the matter? A penthouse is foreign territory. I gotta have a passport.
Mr. Chantry doesn't see anybody without an appointment.
Let go me arm. I'll sue.
Martin, for goodness sake, what's going on here? I'm sorry. He's just trying to protect Mr. Chantry.
So what? I just want to talk to Mr. Chantry. I ain't contemplating no assassination.
Martin, we do not manhandle female intruders. Unfortunately, custom frowns upon it. State your business, madam.
Where is he? I ain't no madam, Mr. Chantry. It's me, Rachel, the wardrobe woman.
Rachel, sit down and make yourself comfortable. Would you like a drink?
I'm not a drinking woman.
Nonsense, Rachel. I could probably squeeze a quart of alcohol from each of your kidneys.
Okay, so test me a little.
Leave the bottle beside her, Martin. Tell Martin I'll breakfast in 1 minute, Parker.
Yes, Mr. Chantry. Martin, Mr. Chantry will be ready for breakfast in exactly 54 seconds.
Yes.
Rachel, how is the jasmine blossom of wardrobe women?
Oh, a little bit wilted around the edges, maybe.
Nonsense. Martin, I see that you're on time.
What if, heaven forbid, something ain't on time around here?
Well, then we execute the culprit like this.
Oh, boy, you sure got some conveniences around here.
Yes, well, I've never relished roughing it. Will you have some coffee, Rachel?
I don't want to mix my drinks. You see Harrington's column where it says about my niece Lois, huh? Well, I'm just sick about it. My blood pressure's up to here. I'm percolating.
Simmer down, Rachel. You asked me to help you, and I will. I've spoken to George Richmond, and Lois is going to be co-starred opposite Alfred Barry in the Theater League's revival of The Grenadier.
Well, it's a catastrophe. What? Oh, Mr. Chantry, oh, thank you. All these years I've been slaving away for this, giving her dramatic lessons, ballet, voice, the whole bit. And now, oh, I don't know why you done this for me, a nutnik with a needle. Oh, Mr. Chantry, you're a real good Joe.
Oh, please, Rachel. I'm having my breakfast. Kindly refrain from dripping gratitude all over my rug.
So what if, heaven forbid, people should know you ain't really a heel? Who you kidding? I knew you when you was your own real self.
And when I was my real self, I couldn't even get a job. But when I had a little too much champagne one night and insulted a lot of people at a party, the whole town was talking about me the next day, remember?
Oh, the things they said. I blushed for the first time in 20 years.
Then have some respect for my terrible reputation. I worked hard for it.
Okay, so you're the beast of Broadway. But not to me, you ain't. You don't know what this means to me. Lois reads Harrington's column this morning, and right away she wants to give up and marry some boy she just met. A farmer from upstate. Ah! Can you imagine Lois on a farm? Why, she never even saw the tree that grows in Brooklyn. It wasn't on our block.
Sure. Lois still doesn't know she's getting that part opposite Alfred Barry. Do you suppose she and that farmer...
Well, I gotta go. I gotta find her. Maybe she done the foul deed already.
I'll phone her.
I don't think she's home.
Better luck next time.
Try to get Lois. We've got to tell her that she's getting the part.
But she didn't get the part.
Of course she did.
No, I tried to tell you before. George Richmond phoned last night and said that Alfred and Linda Barry are going to star in The Grenadier.
But it isn't possible. George Richmond? My dearest friend? My false friend. Well, I'll think of something. Meanwhile, phone Lois. All my very good friends will be delighted to hear about this disaster.
Some of them have already called this morning, chuckling with sympathy. After all, Mr. Chantry, Alfred and Linda Barry have revived The Grenadier 3 times now, so...
So Linda hasn't had a day off in 2 years. She needs a rest, and I'm going to see that she gets one, even if I have to arrange a calamity to befall her. Lois, my dear.
Mr. Chantry, this is Bob Williams. He's terrified of you.
Oh.
Isn't he wonderful? He has a farm upstate.
Well, I'm sure that Mr. Williams plows a fine furrow. How do you do? Won't you sit down?
Mr. Chantry, I'm going to give up the stage. Bob and I are in love. We're going to be married.
Oh, please spare me the biological details. Do you realize what you're giving up? You're going to be a star on Broadway.
But Mr.
And you, Williams, turning the poor young girl's head with your McCormick Reaper or whatever it is. Do you want to deprive the world of a great talent?
Well, no,
Are you going to have her fiddling with the faucets of a herd of Holsteins?
Oh, well, she won't have to work. Why, the farm's mechanized. Tractors, automatic milkers, and even electricity in the chicken coops. Chickens think it's daylight and produce more eggs.
Now, that's a sneaky thing to do. Swindling domestic fowl out of their eggs. Lois, I wouldn't trust this man.
Well, it's just normal scientific farming.
Oh, it is? Well, then perhaps you're qualified to help me with my petunias. They've been drooping lately. They're right out there.
Oh, we'll be glad to.
Lois, wake up. You've worked hard to become a great actress. You don't belong on a farm. A farm is out in the country. They have large quantities of uncooked birds flying about.
Oh, Mr. Chantry, do you use fertilizer?
Certainly not. Your Aunt Rochelle has dreamed of your success. Are you going to let her down, Lois?
Plants need nourishment, Mr. Chantry. You have to feed them.
And I'll give them some scraps from my dinner table. Think of your years of struggle to get rid of your Brooklyn accent and learn English.
These plants aren't getting enough water, Mr. Chantry.
You're a natural-born actress. He's just dazzled you with his farm subsidy.
They're awful thirsty, Mr. Chantry.
Think of your art, of the theater. You can't betray your talent.
They'll die without water, Mr. Chantry.
Well, this should keep them bubbling with health. Now listen, Lois. Fame and fortune. Your name in lights, the Critics' Award. The toast of New York.
Oh, Mr. Chantry, if only
Glorious career. Sable to your eye teeth. Can you give it up now when it's so close?
No, I could never give it up. I must have been crazy to think of it.
Lois, what are you saying?
I'm sorry, Bob, but we belong in different worlds.
But Lois, what'll I do without you?
You've got plenty to do. Irrigate your alfalfa. Stuff your silo. There may be a famine any day now.
Goodbye, Lois.
You better hurry, Williams. You'll miss your spring planting.
Goodbye, Lois.
Mr. Chantry, did you want your car tonight?
Yes, Parker. I'm going to drive up the country to make sure that Linda Barry withdraws from the Grenadier. Lois Cunningham is going to get the part.
Oh, you are wasting your time, Mr. Chantry. You know Linda Barry. It's hopeless to try to change her mind. Do you think you can perform a miracle?
I don't know, Parker. I never tried. By the way, did I tell you that you were looking particularly lovely tonight, Parker?
Really? Well, thank you.
Well, don't thank me. Send a thank you note to your parents. It was they who provided you with your charming equipment.
Well, I'd love to help her, darling. After all, the theater needs new blood, and Alfred thinks that Lois is practically a new Sarah Bernhardt. Oh. Don't you, darling?
I merely said I thought she seemed quite talented.
Yes, and she has the most unusual eyes. Rather like caraway seeds.
Tell me, do I detect a wee touch of jealousy?
Jealousy? Linda jealous of Lois Cunningham? Why, she's a mere child. She's only 19.
She's 20 if she's a day. But I do feel sorry for the poor girl. Really, I do.
No, now, don't collapse in grief, darling. Not before Saturday night, at least. I wouldn't want you to miss my party. I think it's going to be a dilly. It's true, Lucius. The Barrys had a terrible quarrel and probably won't do the play. No, I owe you an item. I wouldn't print this. They're my dearest friends. That's right, Ed. Linda said Alfred shouldn't play the Grenadier anymore. He hasn't the legs for it. She said he needs falsies in his stocking. Alfred said he's 3 years younger than Linda, and she has a better build for the Grenadier than he has.
You know, this might cause serious trouble between them.
Nonsense. For 20 years, the Barrys have been breaking up regularly, like the ice pack in the Yukon, and the publicity has always benefited them.
But they're your friends. Oh, how can you be such a monster?
Well, it isn't easy. Sometimes I have to force myself.
Thank you.
I haven't seen Linda and Alfred. Are they here?
Oh, yes, I saw them separately.
Have you heard, too?
Of course.
Good evening, ladies.
Hello, Oliver. Linda. Really, dear. You ought to do something about all the gossip that's going around.
I never listen to gossip, darling.
But, dear, everyone is saying that Alfred wants you to retire so that he can play opposite Lois Cunningham.
Alfred and I begin rehearsals next week.
Well, I only thought...
It was a kind thought, darling. The kind of thought that makes me think fondly of assault and battery. Is Alfred with that Cunningham girl?
I wouldn't think so.
Lead me to him.
Oh, Mr. Barry, you're very kind.
Oh.
I know I could do wonders if I only had a chance to play opposite you.
I'm sure you'd be enchanting, my dear.
Alfred! When you have stopped swooning over that infant, I'd like to speak with you.
Don't use that tone with me, Linda. You're not at home, you know.
Now listen to me, you senile delinquent.
Now, my pets.
We really weren't doing anything wrong, Mrs. Barry.
Oliver, will you please send that girl out of here, back to the reform school or something?
There's no need to insult her, Linda.
Well, somebody has to, and you weren't exactly doing it. Oh, no. All you can do is make insulting remarks about me.
Well, if what I hear is true...
What you hear? You have said some things about me that I shall never forgive you for, Alfred Barry.
Don't be absurd. Everyone knows that neither of you meant anything by those silly remarks.
Then she did say that.
After what you said about me, you can do the Grenadier with that superannuated teenager. And when you flop, you can go back to the Borst circuit where you belong.
Please remember your pear-shaped tone.
Shut up, Oliver. Let him do the play with Lois. And wait until you see him in those tights. Ha! Legs like a flamingo. I am now going home to wait until you flop and come crawling back to me.
How deplorable. As I predicted, Linda Barry has decided upon a much-needed vacation. Alfred Barry will do the Grenadier with Lois Cunningham. I'm only doing this as a favor to you, George. I can't let the Theatre League down now that Linda has withdrawn from the show. I want Lois Cunningham's contract on my desk by noon today. Goodbye, George. Thank you, Parker, for your mute admiration.
Mr. Chantry? Mr. Chantry? Mr. Chantry? Mr. Chantry, wait till you hear.
Parker, a modicum of restraint, please. What is it?
Well, I just left rehearsal, and Lois Cunningham's acting opposite Alfred Barry is spreading an aroma over the entire city. Her performance is the talk of the town, and such talk. Some people should have their mouths washed out with soap.
And who's making all this talk?
Just everybody who sees Lois as acting, that's all. They're fighting to get into rehearsals. They're coming in large groups, like lynching parties.
Oh, come now. Lois can't be that bad. I know talent when I see it. I may not always be right, but I am never wrong.
Hello, Ollie.
Just one of my fans.
All right, try to remember, Miss Cunningham. He's been in the Army for 8 years. You haven't seen him for 8 years. You think you recognize him as your husband, but you're not sure. Anyway, you love him. Remember that, Miss Cunningham. You love him. All right. Let's try it again.
Once, long ago, I had a husband. I loved him. I love him still.
I know you do.
If you're my husband, you may claim me. I'm your wife. But if you're not my husband, then you may claim me still.
Why would a talented actress deliberately give such an atrocious performance? Unless she's thinking of that farm boy. I'm being sabotaged by Cupid.
She acts as if she'd been recently embalmed. This calls for drastic action, Parker.
Yeah? What have you got in mind?
At the moment, suicide. After all I've done to...
Oh, sure. Down to the Barrys, Mr. Williams, George Richmond, Lois.
And Rochelle.
Rachel, the wardrobe woman?
You better go on home, Parker. I must pay a call. If I'm not home in time for dinner, check the morgue.
Just think, all this trouble you're in just because you did me a good turn.
Yes, I should have profited by experience. Last week I helped an old lady across the street and she picked my pocket.
On 49th?
Yes.
Well, that's my friend, Jenny the genius. Just from being helped across the street, she bought herself a mink coat.
Rochelle, you want Lois to be happy, don't you?
Well, what else? That's why I wanted her to get the part in the show. So she cries all night when she didn't get it. Now she cries all night when she did get it. I don't get it.
Of course you do, Rochelle. She's crying because she's in love.
Oh, when I was in love, I laughed. After I got married, then I cried. And my husband laughed. I could cry right now. We both ought to cry. She's loused up everything just to be happy.
That's why she's giving that sickening performance. I'm afraid that we shall have to appeal to the Farm Bureau.
Williams?
The man with the hoe. Parker, I want Lois here tonight after rehearsal. And that scientific plowman, too.
Williams? He won't come, not after what you did to him.
Well, grab him by his green thumb, if necessary, but get him. Lois, my dear, I watched your rehearsal this afternoon. You were magnificent. You don't for a moment think that your performance deceived me, however, do you?
What?
It was the most expert piece of sabotage since Samson brought down the temple.
You mean you think I was deliberately ruining my chances?
In a word, yes.
Do you think I would sacrifice all the plans my Aunt Rachel has been making for me all these years? Her hopes for me? And after all you've done for me, how could I let you down? It's a terrible thing to know deep down that you're no good, that you really can't act at all.
That was excellent, my dear.
Why would I pretend to be bad?
Possibly because that farmer's turned your pretty little head with his seed catalog.
Mr. Chantry, I do love Bob. And now he won't believe me. He's going back home.
There now, Lois. Now, please, let's not snivel over my imported cravat. I believe your young man has arrived already.
Who, Bob? I thought you didn't like him.
My taxes pay his farm subsidies. I adore every little seed he plants in the good earth. They still use seeds, don't they?
Lois!
Bob.
Well, now that you two have properly identified one another,
What's going on?
I want you to take Lois away. Take her away from here. Rescue her from the clutches of Broadway. What kind of man are you? Would Casanova have let anyone talk him out of his loved one? Would Lord Byron or Cyrano de Bergerac or Romeo? No. They would have fought for their women with cold steel.
Oh, well, I couldn't pull a knife on anybody, Mr. Chantry.
Why not?
Well, Lois has to decide for herself. What about your career?
Her career is love. Growing things, fighting the good fight against the terrible boll weevil.
Oh, well, that's just on cotton, Mr. Chantry. Oh, we have potato bugs and cucumber
Oh, well,
beetles.
then get out your spray guns and annihilate them.
She just has to say yes.
Yes.
Oh, goodbye. I know you'll be happy plowing up the earth into large clods of fertility.
Oh, Mr. Chantry, I looked out on the terrace and, well, like I said, those petunias died.
I promise to give them a decent burial.
Oh, you have just won my personal Oscar.
Never mind the adulation, Parker. There's more to be done.
To whom?
I'm going up to see Linda Barry. She must be very upset, poor thing.
Well, now, why the sudden sympathy?
Well, not to be psychoanalytical about it, I'm going to confess all. Confession should be good for my soul.
Your soul? That shriveled little thing?
No, don't abuse me, Parker. I'm going to reconcile Linda with her adoring husband. Linda's a trooper. She belongs on the stage, not at home, fondling her philodendron.
Oliver Chantry, you heartless wretch. Even if I took Alfred back now, people wouldn't come to see us act. They'd come to see us fight. They'd come to see whether Alfred would kick me right on stage. Oh, they'd line up for blocks.
Is the light beginning to dawn yet, dear?
For blocks, I tell you. They would, too. They'd line up for blocks. Oliver! Oh, you're just fabulous.
So it has been said, my dear. Your husband.
Alfred? Hello? Yes. Yes. Come home, Alfred. You husband, you.
Hello, Ollie.
Just one of my fans. You hear that? If it hadn't been for my efforts, the Theatre League might have had a dismal flop on its hands.
Well, I'm happy for you. And for Rachel, too. She phoned this morning to thank you for something or other.
Thank me? Oh, well, you mustn't pay any attention to her. Everyone knows that Rochelle is a pathological liar. You know, the only thing that I regret is that a talent like Lois should have been sacrificed on the altar of matrimony.
Why are you so opposed to marriage?
I believe strongly in marriage.
You do?
It's an indispensable institution. Every woman should be married. And every man should avoid it like the plague.